One.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the screencast to discuss the lesson plan format. And this is the secondary lesson plan format. We're just going to change it to middle school, which is very similar. And this will also prepare you for the EdTPA lesson plan format that you need to use later on when you're getting certified. So I just want to talk you through a couple different parts here. So as you're planning for our class, the lesson plan should be something in your content area, which means English language arts, science, math, an ELL language or linguistic course, art, computer science, whatever course you're focusing on that you want to eventually teach, that's the lesson plan that you're developing here. And the idea is that you're going to use some of the theory to apply to the lesson. That's why it's called a theory to practice project. Take the theory, think about how it might apply to your actual practice as a teacher, and embed that into your lesson plan and how you facilitate your lesson plan. So the first part here is your philosophy, just your broader philosophy or rationale for teaching this content area. And so here's what I wrote related to my lesson about social needs of human beings and how it's important to read closely to capture a point of view and to build empathy. So while it is a lesson about writing, it's really a lesson about perspective and about empathy and about perspective taking and affirming others' work. So this is sort of a philosophical, a big picture aim. The second thing is to look at the standards, and this is one area that caused just a little bit of confusion maybe the other night in class. And so when you get to your standards, you want to look at one of two places. One is the Common Core State Standards. So if you type in just Google Common Core State Standards, and then you'll see that there are a list of standards for language arts and math. And so, for example, if you click on the language arts, you would choose the grade level, something in middle school, preferably 7th or 8th grade if you want to focus on reading, literature, informational text, writing, or speaking and listening. So you can just click on whichever you're interested in and go to your grade, and this will give you some standards that you can choose from for your lesson. It's the same for math. If it's science, you would go to the next generation science standards. Again, you can look at the standards by topic or search the standards. So Earth systems, energy, and you would select the standard for science. Now, it's okay if you're unfamiliar with this, but the idea is to get you familiar by kind of playing around with it in a safe environment, depending on what area of science you want to work on. So you would select a standard from something in here that you're going to teach a mini lesson. So all of these are standards, and that would apply to the things that you're trying to teach. So if you're going to teach about plants and algae and microorganisms using energy, this would be a standard that you would use for your mini lesson. So that's what you would type in here. The actual standard, you could copy and paste it. The learning objectives are slightly different. It's very similar to the standards, but you're going to use this phrase students will, and this sort of relates to the actual things that the students will produce or say or do that's clear and specific and something you can measure by saying, yes, that was done, no, that was not done, or to some degree. The essential question is slightly different than the philosophical question. The essential question is a question that you might want students to answer when they're working on this project or working on their objectives. So this is a central question that will foster inquiry and understanding. Why does it matter about plankton and algae? What's the purpose of that in our world? Why does it matter? A story about from the point of view first person or second or third person, why does that matter? So those are kind of essential questions. So here's mine. The next part is assessment. So there's informal or formal assessments. Informal could just be sort of making observations and taking notes. A formal assessment might be an actual quiz or writing piece or a product that they produce that we've seen in our class, such as a literature circle document or a quick write or a survey that students do that might be more formal. Formative assessment means something that you're just sort of kind of getting a sense of what students can do, and then you decide what you do tomorrow. So if I gave you a quiz and just to see what you knew. And I noticed a lot of students were missing the same question. That would form my decisions for the next class, so I would try to teach that. A summative assessment might be something that you give at the end of a unit or a high-stakes test. So I don't use very many summative assessments in my work. I mostly use formative assessment because I'm always trying to figure out what students know and then how I can adjust my teaching better. For the learning plan, this is the important part here. So instructional materials, this is pretty straightforward. What do you need? This is the more complicated part where you have to think through what you're going to do. And I would add, this is something that you have to, it takes actually quite a long time to be able to do this in a very efficient way. I sometimes just don't know how long things are going to take, but your lessons are going to be 20 minutes. So you have to think about maybe an introduction, that's maybe 3 minutes. The lesson is probably 12 minutes, and then maybe the closure is 5 minutes or something along those lines. So you really have to be concise and efficient in the way that you run your 20-minute lesson. So I have it set up where what is the teacher doing during the introduction? What is the student doing during the introduction? And then how would I evaluate it? How do I know that the students are learning or doing what I'm asking them to do? For the lesson, again, I have teacher. What is the teacher doing? What is the student doing? And for closure, what is the teacher doing? What is the student doing? And for each point, I'm thinking, how do I know that the students are doing what I'm asking them to do? And just as a general rule, you're never going to be sitting down. You're always going to be walking around. You might have a clipboard so you can take notes, making observations the whole time during the lesson. And for your purposes, again, this is the lesson maybe about the plankton, or this is a lesson about point of view, or this is the lesson about quadratic equations. Keeping track of the time and how you're going to bring students into it with your introduction, how you're going to actually give them a chance to practice and learn something, and the closure, how you're going to sort of reflect on whether or not you got at the essential question. The adaptations and extensions are really important because you know that some in your class you may have some students with a disability or a language learner or even a gifted learner, someone who knows this stuff really well, and you maybe have been in classes like that before where someone already knows everything and they might be bored or someone's really struggling. So you have to be thinking about what you can do to make everyone have access to the learning and be challenged. This also is really difficult to do, but one of the things I like about writing is that writing is naturally sort of diversified, differentiated, because it's inviting students to do what they can do. So be thinking about always what students can do and then maybe offering some extensions. This is a little bit difficult. So when you work on this with your draft, that's something I'll look at and give you feedback for. The references, where you're getting your materials from. And then this is sort of an alignment, kind of thinking about how it all fits together. How do the assessments help students demonstrate their learning? And then this last part here is just thinking about how the theory that you're talking about today is going to manifest or inform the way that you facilitate your lesson. So I'm just kind of talking through the different parts of the lesson plan here and giving you a few tips, but what's really important is that you spend time working on the lesson plan and that you send it to me by Sunday night before you present so I can give you some feedback, you can make some revisions, and have a successful experience. The very last thing I want to talk about is during your lesson plan here, specifically this section where you're having students do some activity, I like you to be sure that you look at your middle school strategy book, middle school motivators book. The inside of that book has lots of different strategies that you can use to help students learn. So in this book, there's a Venn diagram that you should check out. So I want to just remind you that you have your middle school book, 22 Interactive Strategies, that you have sources in here to help you with your lesson plan. Okay, so I hope everything goes well. Be sure to send me your lesson plan when you have a draft so that I can give you some feedback. And you want to send it to my DonovanS@ccsd15.net. Thank you.